Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 6th of July 2021, and last night I saw this fantastic video. It really is well worth a watch, and amazingly it's on YouTube, so I don't even need to put it on my website. I should be able to just put a link to it in the comments section in the description box below. But it's a 45-minute long video, but it's well worth a watch. And the title of it is, so I'm just going to look down at some notes here because I've got a lot to say in this video. Monopoly, Follow the Money, and it's from a Dutch channel. I'm not going to bother pronouncing the name of it because I'll just sort of mess up the Dutch pronunciation, but the English for it is Women for Freedom is what it means. And although it is for everybody to watch, and it is done in English, so no need to worry about there. But basically what this video explains is essentially how the entire world is organized and how it works. And if you've ever wondered why all the big institutions, all the governments, all the big companies, they just all seem to sing off the same hymn sheet, as it were, all the time. They're all ridiculously politically correct, aren't they, or woke. There just never seems to be any dissenting voices or any sort of renegades. And it's the same with governments, especially in this situation. They always seem to sort of just toe the same line as the next one. And if there is any kind of opposition anywhere, it always seems to be controlled opposition, doesn't it? And normally the opposition wants the narrative to be even more strict than what it is, so it's not really opposition at all. And you just wonder why all these countries are doing exactly the same. And the video that I'm talking about does explain it really well. And essentially every big company, every institution that you can think of is owned by all the same people. If it's a household name, essentially, if it's a household name that you and everybody else has heard of, chances are it will be owned by these people. And the way it works and the way the video explains it is there's all these kind of investment companies who own the likes of, I don't know, let's say Boeing or Coleman's Mustard or Kellogg's or Google, and it's like a pyramid. Those investment companies that own those companies are then owned in turn by a slightly fewer group of companies, and then at the kind of getting towards the top of the pyramid is only a handful of investment companies, about sort of 4, 5, 6 of them, who own all the rest of the investment companies, who then own everything, as I say, that you've really ever heard of, certainly anything famous. And the major shareholders in these top investment companies are, well, I won't mention their names here, but they're kind of the billionaire oligarchs. And I'm sure, the usual suspects. I'm sure you can think of 3 or 4 of them straight off the top of your head. And if you sat down for a little while, there'd be about another sort of 6 or 7 or 8 of them who'd sort of come to mind as well. And essentially, these people have just got sort of control and ownership of everything. And it's again, in the video, they gave a really good example. Just imagine you're going on holiday. Well, you'd probably book your flights through Skyscanner. That's owned by them. You would then book your hotel through booking.com perhaps, or one of those other sort of major ones. Well, they're owned by them. And then when you get onto the plane, you're probably going to be stepping onto either a Boeing or an Airbus, or both of those are owned by them. So, and that's another thing, you know, these companies that you think are competitors aren't really competitors. So Boeing and Airbus are in exactly the same sort of ownership at the end of the day, so not really competition at all. And even Coke and Pepsi aren't competitors because they're both owned by these same people as well, as is, as I say, pretty much everything else. But just continuing with the holiday thing, you know, you get to your holiday destination, and if you're staying in a big sort of chain hotel chain, and you're eating at sort of big chain restaurants, well, guess what? They're all owned by that lot as well. And because these people have just got such massive influence all over these companies, in turn they then are able to control the politicians and the governments and the NGOs and really all these the universities and all these other kind of institutions, just by way of the fact that they heavily influence and own all the big companies, and therefore really all the money. But you've probably suspected this before, as I have, and yeah, this isn't really much of a surprise, but this video really does kind of bring it home to you. Just because I sort of thought a lot of it was owned by the same people, but I didn't realise absolutely all of it was owned by the same people. You know, pretty much absolutely all of it. And you have to come down to your smaller companies, so maybe the odd medium-sized company and smaller companies, before you get any degree of independence from this kind of ownership at all. And yeah, it just really brought it home to me. So I thought I'd just have a little bit of fun with this, just to illustrate the point even more, than the video does. And this is kind of my take on what the video says. Now, let's say you're one of these billionaire oligarchs, one of the usual suspects, and you just want to have a bit of fun, because I'm sure these people do treat this very dispassionately and almost like a game. I'm sure they regard the world as just one huge chessboard, and they're just sort of moving their sort of kings and queens and pawns around and having a giggle about it, essentially just seeing what they can get away with. Kind of reminds me of the 80s film Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, where the sort of two horrible billionaire guys have a little bet with a ridiculously little amount of money. I think it's only $1 that they bet, and they say they can sort of just get the two main characters to swap over, so the successful city trader guy kind of ends up being homeless, and the homeless guy ends up being, a successful financial trader, and they just sort of laugh. These two billionaires just sort of laugh and just treat it as one big joke, even though they're ruining lives. And I'm sure that's how these billionaire oligarchs look upon the world as well. And they just want to have their little bit of fun. And if it sort of destroys your life or your sort of family's lives, or even the life of your sort of, or even destroys your community or village or whatever it might be, that's just, they just look at that as dispassionately as you would sort of look at losing a pawn in a game of chess. So, but anyway, let's just get back to my example. Let's say you're one of these billionaire oligarchs and you want to have a bit of fun, and you said to one of your billionaire oligarch mates, I bet I can get the whole world eating nothing but chocolate. And the other one's going, I bet you can't. You go, yeah, I can. I'll bet you £1. Bet you £1 I can. And the other guy will go, well, no, let's make it sort of some proper money. Let's call it at least a £5. yeah, okay, done. So fiver, I'll bet you a fiver, I can get the whole world eating chocolate. So what would happen? Well, they sort of set the wheels into motion, and the first thing they'd do is they'd get their sort of bought puppets in various universities and other research kind of organisations to start coming out with these studies saying that chocolate is good for you, and they would sort of commission a series of these studies and get their sort of puppets to sort of bring it out. And then after a little while, the media, again bought and paid for by these same oligarchs, they would start coming out with, oh, these new studies show that chocolate is actually good for you. You should be sort of eating at least one big chocolate bar a day, and all this kind of thing. That's good news, isn't it? And to start with, it might just be in the kind of more trashy press, sort of like, I don't know, the Sun and the Daily Mail, papers like that. But it would then sort of spread to the more supposedly upmarket papers, not that any of them are upmarket in my opinion. And then it would start getting onto TV, onto radio, and it would start getting everywhere. Of course, they'd use psychology to persuade us as they're sort of talking about the benefits of chocolate. Powerful psychology, and it is a very powerful thing. You only have to watch a couple of Derren Brown sort of programs. I don't know if you remember him, the sort of psychological trickster who was very popular a few years ago. And you saw how easy it was that he could influence people and get them to do what he wanted. And he only had probably just a few days or a few weeks to prepare for his tricks. But these people have had sort of months, years of psychological preparation, and they've got access to the cleverest psychologists around. So that had all come into play as well. And yeah, eventually public opinion would start swinging around to believing that eating chocolate, and perhaps nothing but chocolate, was really good for you, and that you could sort of become much more healthy and have a much more healthy life if all you eat was just chocolate. And then it'd progress on from there, wouldn't it? Before too long, again, they're paid puppets in government, and government institutions would also start saying how beneficial chocolate was to eat, and they might even start passing laws saying that it is compulsory to eat a certain amount of chocolate a week, and that and a lot of pressure would be put on you to just eat chocolate all the time. Forget your vegetables, forget your meat, forget your sort of vitamins, forget this, that and everything else that's healthy for you. Just eat chocolate, because that is what the experts recommend. And of course, there'd be people like us, wouldn't there, who would smell a rat with all this, and we'd be sort of looking at this and thinking, well, hang on a minute, it was only sort of a few months ago that everybody knew that chocolate was bad for you. If you eat too much of it at any rate, it's bad for you. So why is everybody, absolutely everyone, saying it's good for you? Well, this is why. This kind of explains it. And of course, people like us would start getting censored by the big social media companies for saying that chocolate's good for you, or for saying that chocolate's bad for you. And first of all, it'd just be subtle, but then the censorship would get more and more overt. And because by now the general population has been so indoctrinated into thinking that eating chocolate is so good for you, the likes of us would just be seen as total idiots. And the mainstream media would give people like us with our opinion on chocolate, absolutely no time whatsoever. And if you went on to a TV programme and said, oh, hang on a minute, isn't chocolate bad for you? All the presenters would just round on you and sort of just scream, what an idiot you are. Why can't you just, sort of accept that the experts have told us that chocolate is good for you? And that's how it would go. Eventually we would become pariahs of society for daring to say that chocolate is bad for you, and and going against the narrative that everybody else is sort of saying that chocolate is good for you. And that is exactly how it'd work. And you can see it, especially after you watch this video, you can see how it'd work, just as I've described with the chocolate example. It would just start off slowly and then snowball and snowball until everybody sort of thinks you've just got to eat nothing but chocolate. And there'd be these sort of billionaire oligarchs chuckling to themselves at how easily they were able to manipulate the world. So I was talking about chocolate here, and I'm sure you can insert in place of the word chocolate another treat, as many people seem to think it is. And I think from now on I might actually refer to that other treat as chocolate. So in my upcoming videos, if you sort of see me talking about chocolate randomly, that explains it, although I'm sure you'll pick it up anyway. So I was just really, really impressed by this video. As I say, I'll leave a link to it below, and it's well worth a watch. Really does explain a lot. So hope you enjoyed my silly chocolate example to sort of explain the video even more. I'll be back later. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.